Good afternoon, everybody. Okay, so we are here. I'm joined by my colleague Maggie Parke from the Mythgard Institute, and we are here to talk about the new character posters that just dropped today from Amazon on Prime. I have to admit, though I knew this was happening, I didn't know there were going to be this many. Good grief, there's a lot of these. I was like, people's hands were starting to swim in front of my eyes, as I was kind of going through all these images. And it's interesting because on the one hand, there's a lot here, and on the other hand, there's not a lot here as well. So there are lots of questions. I do think that there are some really interesting things that we can see. There are only a few that I feel like confident about, I would say. There's many of them have been chosen in ways that are fairly neutral. Ambiguous. Yeah, sort of fairly ambiguous, but it's going to be fun to see more as we get it, and I'll look forward to kind of looking through things here too. One thing that I will confess up front, I'm on the list. I got one of these early, but it dropped while I was asleep, so I didn't I didn't share it at the time. But I got I'll tell you the one that they sent to me. So we'll see. But anyway, okay. So let's start at the top. So Maggie, we're on the Instagram post, right? That has the whole group here, and I agree this is much easier. So if we start with this first one, so in its way, this on the one hand, I want to say that this is seems the most obvious, right? And yet it's also one of the ones concerning which I have the most questions, honestly, right? The one thing I was not really expecting in season 1 was Dark Lord Sauron. All right, I was not looking for Dark Lord Sauron. I was expecting, and I still rather expect, that the frame of the... and let me just specify, by the way, although I'm on Amazon's mailing list, I know nothing. I'm not keeping secrets here. I know nothing. So this, when I'm speculating, and if I'm right, it's just because I'm lucky or good, probably the former. So anyway, the frame of the series I expect to be elvish. Right, or at least not. I don't expect scene 1 to be Sauron, the Dark Lord, on his dark throne, being like, what shall I do to overthrow Eriador? Right, that's not going to be the frame. The frame has got to be from the elvish point of view, right? So, as far as Sauron's involvement, what I'm expecting is we're with Celebrimbor, we're with Gil-galad, we're with Elrond, and we're with Galadriel, and then Sauron in Anatar form comes in to the picture, probably not right away, maybe not until halfway through the season, and maybe in a way that we don't even know that it's him, right? I mean, it may be a surprise who he is entirely. What I don't expect is spiky gauntlet Sauron sitting on his throne carrying weapons. I didn't expect a single shot of that. So I was asking myself, I'm looking at this and I'm like, all right, Let's think for a second this is not Sauron. Who could it be? If it isn't. Who are the candidates?
Exactly what Twitter and Instagram are doing. They are all speculating what this might be.
Right. Exactly. Now, the sword is really cool, right? The sword is fun. I see people commenting on that, as Phil was saying, if it's Sauron, they're going with a sword instead of Peter Jackson's mace. Yeah, sure. And that doesn't seem to me very controversial. There's no reason to think that Sauron need be wielding a mace just because Jackson made him do so. And Jackson clearly made him do so just because he wanted to do that effect where he knocks 10 elves sailing through the air, right, with each blow. And it's easier to do that with a very large bludgeoning weapon than it is with a sword. Because having him, like, bisect 10 elves with each swing would have been an R rating right off the top, right? So, I get why Jackson did that, but there's no reason to think that he doesn't have a sword. But looking at the sword, so the sword does not in any way, to me, suggest that it is or is not Sauron. I mean, that could be as it is. It's a very ornate sword. It's a very fancy sword, right? Which is interesting. I mean, one of the things that I think Jackson actually underplayed, I should say, in his visual representation of Sauron, like how he dresses and stuff in the very few scenes that we see him, is that I think he underplays the fact that Sauron was one of the Mire of Aule. I mean, like, he's a super craftsman dude. Like, he's one of the greatest craftsmen in all of Middle-earth, right? Possibly the greatest craftsman who's resident in Middle-earth. So his stuff should be fantastic, right? And he wasn't exactly like wearing orc crude armor and such, right? Like we saw the really crude armor of the orcs and everything. It wasn't like that, but it wasn't far removed from that. I mean, like, the elf armor was way schnazzier. I like the schnaz here, right? Like the gauntlet, like, look at that, like, detail work in the gauntlet and the little swirlies at the end of it, as well as the, like, intimidating spikes.
And it looks like there's, like, crest imprints at the top of the gauntlet. Like, there's definitely some chutzpah there as well. Yes.
Yeah, exactly. So, if it is Sauron, I like the idea that especially, of course, and it's requisite to push Sauron in that direction in the context of the forging of the Rings of Power. I mean, that he is the greatest artisan, and therefore, I mean, we're talking about somebody who is going to Celebrimbor, one of the greatest elven, craftsmen of all time, and basically offering him his services as an advisor and specialist, right? Like, just in case you need to up your game a little bit, I'm here to help you. Like, that's Anatar's move with Celebrimbor, for crying out loud. So he has to have the goods, right? He has to show the goods if he's got the goods. So I think that's going to be really, really important. You're right, we can see mail in the background, Kendall. It does look like chainmail, possibly, there over on the left-hand side of the image. So I can, and maybe we're just going to get a flash of Dark Lord, foreboding, shot of Dark Lord Sauron to establish, like, by the way, like, in case you don't know, there's totally a bad guy somewhere, and
there's also not the clarification that these posters, all these characters, are just season 1. Like, they could be laying the foundations for everything, for all we know.
It's very true. It's very true. This could be end of show Sauron in the War of the Last Alliance. Absolutely. That is an important thing to remember. But in which case, the one thing that and of course, we can't see quite enough of it. But the one thing, I'm looking at the sword. I'm turning my head because I'm looking at the sword, and I'm trying to see if there's any, like, it's intricate and it's delicate, but I was trying to see if there's anything, like, actually representational, and I don't think I can see anything.
Aside from the stamps at the top of his gauntlet, which are, I think, purposely fuzzed out, you can't really see. And I love the organicness of the top of his sword.
Yeah.
It goes.
Yeah. No, I think it's really interesting. But, so, I mean, let's not complicate things. I'm going to assume this is Sauron. But I think it's just interesting that they're leading with this. One could think, messaging-wise, right, that even though Dark Lord Sauron is very unlikely to appear in Season 1, they do want to prompt the viewing audience to be in Dark Lord Sauron mode. Like, it's important that is in the back of our minds, right?
Yeah, and I think, like, just going, we want to look real quick at just the overview of all of these. Yes, there's a boatload of hands, but also, like, there's enough familiar things that if you are not au fait with the Silmarillion to the extent that the Tolkien Professor is, you're still going to have a few things that you go, ooh, that looks like Rohan. Ooh, that, there's a few things that will kind of tie you in and get you excited. It's quite clever in that way. It is.
Yeah, I agree. The tie-ins to actually, let's jump out of order because you mentioned it and look at the Rohan one for a second, or the Rohan-esque one, right? Because you're right. I totally agree that, like, people who don't know the Second Age, and by the way, nobody knows the Second Age. He never wrote anything about the Second Age, right? People who are not familiar.
Excellent fodder for adaptation.
Right. People who don't know, are not familiar with the scattered few facts that that Tolkien ever wrote about the Second Age. Well, no, like, Rohan's not in it, right? I mean, like, presumably there are some distant ancestors of the Eotheod around, but and maybe, they're going to be, but, like, look at the comments there on Instagram, right? Rohan, fourth Eorlingas, success, right? I agree. I mean, this seems to be calculated to kind of touch that chord, right? With viewers, you're going to get some things that are going to be familiar to you. Now, again, I assume the context is quite otherwise. They might have a human horse lord, but, like, there is a human culture that is really famous for horses, and it's Numenor, actually. Like, the Numenoreans are quite famous for their cavalry and their horses. So if I had to guess who the Numenorean armor, or who the armor guy with the horse on his sword hilt, I would guess that this is a Numenorean dude, not a, like, proto-Rohirric culture, like a, Old English, Germanic Anglo-Saxon culture like we get in Rohan. Yeah, I'm not. I doubt it's possible. I mean, again, there would have been the Rohirrim are descended from a group of men who did not go over the sea, right? So that means, by definition, their ancestors were present in Middle Earth in the Second Age. So who knows? But I think it less likely. And
I'm sure that's the purpose. Show us something familiar and just look at the first 4 comments of a bajillion comments.
Right.
It's just to get you talking. It's just to get you fighting and debating and engaging with people and getting it exciting.
Yeah, exactly. So I think the fanciness of the, like, scale leather there, again, several things about that image there suggest to me most likely a level of technology perhaps higher than the Rohirrim as well. Might be wrong. Seems to be a wooden, the hilt seems to be made of wood, though looking at the how complicated and detailed the blade engraving is, that would look to be an aesthetic choice rather than some kind of necessity, technological necessity. But anyway, I think that this is pretty cool. Anyway, so we can go back to the sort of beginning here. Okay, number 2. No idea.
There was a lot of speculation about wizard.
Yeah, I mean, wizard. We get a wool. Looks like knitted wool. Thing. What is the description for this one? Hang on, I'm looking it up here. I love how, like, the descriptions all start with close-up of someone's hand. Actually, I have that over here.
Oh,
this
good,
is
okay.
James Tauber made from the Digital Tolkien Project, made up a spreadsheet that has all the descriptive texts and stuff. So, it says like every single one of them say close-up of hands. We do not see face, right? We see the end of a gray beard. Do we?
We do in the bigger one. This is the Instagram one.
Shorter
I was
one.
just thinking that this cuts the end off. So let me get a Twitter to get the taller ones.
Right. Get both of them. So we can switch back and forth. Right. Here we get the taller ones there and the wider ones on Instagram. Yeah. Okay.
All right. Okay. Keep talking about. There we go.
Oh yeah, there we go. There's the end of the gray beard. Okay. Right. Okay, that's not a very impressive beard lengthwise, all things considered, but that's interesting. Okay, holding a red apple. Yeah. Okay. Rough gray robe. Yeah, sure. Okay, robe is the noun is what I was looking for. Robe. Could be wizard. Clearly, I mean that's obviously a good candidate. Except there are no wizards in Middle-earth in the Second Age. We'd have to make a change for that. But, I would not be either shocked or appalled if they did do that. The Astari arrive in Middle-earth in the Third Age. But, yeah, I just... But we have to remember, just because we know what the books say doesn't mean we know what's going to be happening in the series, right? So yeah, I don't know. It would, in some ways, it would almost be bold of them not to, project the wizards backwards. Like to do a wizard-free Lord of the Rings series would be a little bit bold, if you see what I mean. I mean, there's going to be a lot of wizards are like,
the thing.
Yeah, like wizards and hobbits, right? Are like the two things everybody associates with Tolkien. Seriously, is there anything more than and elves? Yeah, okay, elves, hobbits, and wizards. Obviously, no shortage of elves, right? But to do, and this is another reason why I'm neither shocked nor appalled at the idea of including hobbits in this series. We have literally no reason to think there aren't hobbits existing in Middle-earth in the Second Age. No, we're told no stories about them. We're told that no histories record them until midway through the Third Age. But we are also told that the hobbits are kind of indignant about the fact that no histories record them until midway through the Third Age. So, I can't imagine they'd object to being included. Anyway, so...
I think that's the strength of the Second Age, that it's so fluid that
it's so open. It's so open, absolutely. Yeah. So could they include wizards? Yeah, they could include wizards. And that would have to be, unlike hobbits. With hobbits, you don't have to change anything to put them in. You just have to tell stories that don't get recorded in the in the published works. You have to make a change to include wizards. At least to include our wizards, right? Gandalf and Radagast and Saruman. And the blue wizards, you'd have to make change because we know that they didn't arrive until the middle of the Third Age. But conceivably, you could have wizard-esque people.
Here we are and this is where we are with the speculation again. It's like this is on purpose to make us do exactly this.
That's it. This is it.
But this could just be like a farmer. We don't know.
This could just be a dude. Yeah, this could just be a dude. Certainly, the roughness of the coat, which looks like homespun wool, is this could be a peasant. The apple could be an indication of, like, as you say, a farmer. Some agrarian, peasant who's involved. And I will say, as a footnote, even if this were to turn out to be a wizard, which all things considered, when I look at this as a whole, I'm not sure I'm buying it. Really,
this could be a hobbit. Like, I don't know why we all think this is a wizard right off the bat. I'm okay to presume
the grayness, the beard, but yeah, even the humility of holding an apple. I like that if it's a wizard. Like, I would be pleased if they're doing a wizard. I would be kind of pleased if he looks like this. Like, I would kind of like that. But one of my biggest first reactions from looking at the whole list it's not a list, I guess, panoply of images, is a really interesting mixture of social classes, right? These are not all princelings by any stretch. And we're not talking about like one or two token hobbit peasants, right? There's a significant number of people of apparently humble background, which is really interesting. Really interesting because that's unusual in Tolkien's world. Very unusual in Tolkien's world. Sam is an outlier, a big outlier in Tolkien's world. Of course, even Merry and Pippin are princelings. Yeah. Even Frodo is the head of a major house by inheritance from Bilbo. you can tell, by the way, that Frodo sees himself as the head of the Baggins clan, or at least with enormous clout within the Baggins clan, by what he says about Lotho when they get back to the Shire. Remember, like he says, it is time the family dealt with him. He says, right. Frodo definitely sees himself, if not the head of the Baggins family, which Bilbo was, or maybe he, someone else took over after he left. Maybe it's Lobelia now, as it would well have been. But clearly he views himself as being able to do. Anyway, point is, there are almost no peasants as any kind of main character. They're almost all princelings of one kind or another. Legolas is, Gimli sorta is. I mean, Glowin's a major person, and he's the son of a major figure in Erebor. Anyway, so I was very interested in seeing all of the sort of peasant type figures, and even if should this turn out to be a wizard, that it is a peasant type figure is very interesting. That they're casting them in that way is interesting, even if it's just that. It is possible that the character could be introduced as like a farmer in Numenor. Yeah, we could be just getting local color in some of these pictures. Yeah. Maggie, like you were saying, we can't assume that these pictures are just from season 1. And I would say, I don't think we can assume that all of these people are major characters.
Yeah, I mean, they're called character posters, but that doesn't mean they are named characters. It means we're painting a picture, right? Like,
right.
Doesn't necessarily have to be a name assigned to this. And there's also no ring on this one. So, dirty fingernails and an apple. It's not a lot to go by. Right.
Exactly. And a beard. Yeah. Okay. Let's go to the next one. Okay.
Right. I'm going to have to scroll it on the... Let's get the full picture on...
Oh, let's do that here. All right, hang on. Wait. Oh. Okay, hang on. Wait. Do
you want to do it in order from
let's just do it in order from here.
All right.
That way, because it's easier to pick and choose on the Instagram page.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. This dude. So,
dude. I thought woman.
It could be one. I use dude in a gender neutral way.
Right.
Dude is gender neutral in my vocabulary, as is guy, by the way. Like, we don't have any good, like, most of our true gender neutral nouns are all really stiff, like person, right? So I, for this reason, use both guy and dude as completely gender neutral. Anyway, so this individual is... my first impulse says elf. I could be human, but here we do not have one of the peasant people, right? The sort of circles and stars worked into the fabric. We do have what looks like the 8-pointed star there, which looks like a Feanorian star. So that's one thing that leads me to think elf. The belt. That kind of pointy aesthetic, that kind of like vaguely leaf-shaped sort of aesthetic there on the buckle also kind of says elf to me a little bit, though I don't have any kind of a clear sense of what the Numenorean aesthetic would look like. Numenorean would be my second guess because, of course, I mean, we have like basically two, when we're trying to, kind of categorize, right? Like the big categories. So when I'm looking at these pictures, the first question I'm asking myself is elf, Numenorean, Hobbit, because we're told they're hobbits, other random human, or like bad guy, right? Like, what are we seeing? Like that, those are kind of, so first I try to sort it into those general categories. Somebody who is in fancy clothes, and we do have the like cloth of gold cuffs here, right? Plus this person looks quite clean, and not in warrior garb. Somebody like the horse head sword handle person had dirty hands, but battle dirty, not I'm working in the fields dirty, right?
Yeah.
Dirt on the hands, not under the fingernails. So like warrior dirty, not farmer dirty.
And the pose, I feel like we've seen Legolas stand like this and Elrond stand like this. Like this is very much an elvish pose of patient and waiting, and I've existed for a very long time.
Yeah, this is a standing in attendance kind of pose, right? It's therefore like it's possible this could be Elrond, right? I don't think so. I have another vote for Elrond, but it could be Elrond. That is, he's like a second in command elf dude, right? So one could imagine him standing with his arms folded in front of him like this, one step behind Gil-galad, basically. But the Fëanorian star suggests probably not Elrond. I think I think it's probably elf of Eregion, one of Celebrimbor's elves, but probably not Celebrimbor himself, who you would think would almost have to have more bling than this.
It's quite simple.
It is quite simple. It is quite simple. Do we get anything else on the Instagram version? Is there anything that we get on the wider angle? Oh yeah, we do. We get a capelet.
We're not using the Instagram one. We're using the Twitter one.
Right. Can I see the Instagram? Because we do get more on the Instagram one. Like the Instagram one is wider. So I want to go like just for quick reference. We get a.
Okay, you're right.
A capelet or drapes or something. Maybe a cape, right? Which suggests courtier a little bit more to me.
And
right?
it's red, which feels very important.
Yeah.
It's not subtle. It's not brown. It's not gray.
Yeah. I'm not loving it with the orange, but he can do.
But with the gold, maybe it's a rising sun situation.
Possibly. Yeah. But anyway, okay. Yeah, I think probably elf. I don't think Círdan. I don't because if the 8-pointed star is to be trusted, then that's Fëanorian. So yeah. Okay, let's do the next one.
Okay.
I gotta push myself cruelly through these because there's so many of them. Oh man, like if they had released one, 2 of these a week for 12 weeks, I'd have been happier. But anyway, okay.
You realize we don't have to cover all of this in one go, Corey, either. We could string it out and think about it, but this is way more fun.
Yeah. Well, we'll see what happens. Okay. All right. This is obviously noble, right? This shows more wealth than anything we've seen. This opulent, yeah. We have 2 rings with gems on, which is one of the things that I was looking for when I was looking at rings, right? Obviously, one looks first at the rings when it's over the title Rings of Power. And of course, we know that apart from the 1, each, the 3, the 7, and the 9 had each their proper gem, according to the text. So, okay, we have 2 rings with gems. So, that's in play. A certain amount of hair on this hand, right? Which is interesting. I didn't know. My first impulse was like, oh, it's probably a human, not an elf. But I don't know how they're going to do elves. Like, there might be hairy elves. Are we going to get hirsute elves in this series? I don't know.
I never would have thought of this until you said that, but this looks like a poor Photoshop job because there's only hair on that bottom pinky.
Maybe, I don't know.
Maybe hair on the back. They just
hair on the back of hands can be odd. Yeah. Anyway, so we've got 2 rings, the pinky ring and the middle finger ring, and both have a gem. I don't know that we're going to be seeing any rings of power. First of all, I'll be interested to see how the rings of power get distributed. I mean, like how soon in the now, as you say, it's not necessarily all season 1. I don't even know when the rings are going to get distributed. Certainly, the elven rings. It's likely that Celebrimbor is just going to have them. We may get his gifting them too. Like Jackson made it look like. Celebrimbor made the 3 elvish rings for immediate distribution, which is not necessarily the case at all. But Yeah, yeah. Electro John says, can confirm regarding hand hair, that is the weirdness of patterns therein, he says, which is not something I've ever typed before. The belt looks like a sun. Now we see a sunburst motif in a couple of these. And I'm not sure what to do with that. The sunburst is interesting because almost everybody does stars in the Second Age. The Numenoreans did stars, right? You know, the land of the star is one of the nicknames of Numenor, right? So it's they're not associated with the sun. The elves, the Eldar, you know, the people of the stars, are not associated with the sun either. Sun by default makes me think human. It's another thing that makes me think. Also, the clothing style looks kind of high medieval Italian noble kind of.
Renaissance painting.
Yes, yeah, exactly. Like 14th to 16th century Italian noble kind of dude, or you know, late Tudor court kind of, which again doesn't feel to me like an elvish aesthetic. I imagine this person wearing a floofy hat. Right.
Yes, with a feather, perhaps. On
perhaps
the side
with a
of it.
feather. Yeah, exactly. That's what this costume looks like from what we can see of it. So that's another reason that I think human. I agree. Anarian is definitely a sun person. It is possible. I mean, especially if we're getting way to the end of the series, we could be getting Isildur and Anarian among these pictures, right? So yes, Anarian would make sense as the Lord of the Tower of the Sun. But also the other reason, the downward, like whatever that is that's attached to it. Is it a sash, or is it, maybe it is? It looks like it's a sash.
Like one of those metal cummerbunds, you know, when you were a Cub Scout, you put your patches on it.
Right. Yeah. I think it is a sash that's like tucked in through the belt, which also, and with the medallions on it, made me think of the, like, what the like chancellor would wear, like the with the collar of S's, you know, with the Tudor rose, and like that kind of like heavy stuff.
Ceremonial.
Again, very much kind of in that. It's felt like it was kind of in that mode. It's possible that they would end up doing Numenorean courtiers in this way, right? The Sunburst needn't be Numenor as a whole. It could be his house, for instance, right? It could be like a nobleman of a noble house. There do seem to be multiple sort of sigils there.
And this one seems to have runes on it. There might be some sort of an animal in this one, so I do feel like they're signifiers rather than like war medals. But
yeah, I agree.
Like nobility rather than champion. But
nobility,
like
even merchant magnate potentially. Especially thinking about the decadence of later Numenor. You know, we could be getting like a merchant king who is part of this slave trade from Middle Earth or something, like it, you know, very possible. I don't, for this reason. Now, the only remaining question would be, would either of those rings be one of the 9? Possible. Because presumably we're going to be getting the backstory of the 9 ring wraiths. If we're going to do multiple seasons on the Second Age leading up to the, like, why on earth would we not do full backstories of all 9 guys who end up as the ring wraiths? But and
in terms of a story arc, that's kind of what I would expect. I mean, we've got 5 seasons, so who knows where the climactic arcs are going to be. But I would imagine by the end of season 1, we know the main players, and there are established that rings can be powerful, good or bad. and
Right.
we know there's a threat incoming. So like, I would imagine we get some of that throughout
Yeah.
this.
Yeah, exactly. Someone was just asking, great question. Triple Shot was asking, what I wonder if they're gonna do, more, like if they're gonna do the. Sorry, I changed my audio. My batteries are dying here, so hang on. Okay, all right. One of the things that that Triple Shot there was asking, are they going to do any of the lesser rings? Like there are lesser rings of power that are not, one of the 20 of the primary rings. My impulse there is probably no, mostly because 19 rings is quite a lot, especially if you have 19 characters. Right, that have to be introduced in order to establish the wielders of the 19 rings. It's a lot. Even 9. I mean, 9 ring wraiths. It's not quite 13 dwarves, but it's a lot, right? So
yeah, but here we are with 24 posters. So who the hell knows?
right, exactly. Yeah, now, Josh the Left, I agree. If one of those rings is a ring of power, doesn't presenting it along with the other kind of diminish its importance? Yeah, but see, what I'm wondering is, that would be kind of interesting in itself, right? It would depend on who the person is. If you have, like, imagine you have, so let's, theoretical scenario, right? This guy is a Numenorean, magnate of some kind, right? Noble, merchant king, whoever he is, right? One of the richest, most powerful dudes in Numenor, and he's given a ring of power by Sauron. He's also going to have like his own crest ring and everything. What, is he going to stop wearing that? No, he's not going to stop wearing that. In fact, he might very well be like, yeah, I've got my, my signet ring, and I've got this other, and I got a ring of power. And by the way, did you also see my, like, that's going to be the kind of person he's going to be, right? So yeah, I wouldn't think that would be a problem.
Look at this outfit. He's not subtle. And if those are signifiers of houses and position or mercantile wealth, he's going to show it all off.
Exactly. I mean, yeah, it was the desire to elevate himself was certainly one of the shortcomings, would have been one of the shortcomings of a future ring wraith. Okay, but we're not doing good well as far as efficiency goes. Okay, here we go. We did that one. Okay, we did that one. We did that one. All right, good. We're on a roll.
All right.
Okay, Sunburst number 2. Big Sunburst. Okay, sun on this. Whoop. Hang on, we got. Oh,
sorry,
yeah,
I'm just going to compare it with this one.
Yeah, where is he? He's further down. There he is. No, that's not him.
No, that's not it.
There it is. There he is, up at the top. Okay. We've got a sun on the pommel of the sword, sun on the blade of the sword, sun on the breastplate. So this person is all in. We have a ring, but no gem, which for now I'm going to assume means definitely not a ring of power. So, as always, I ask my first question: human, elf, hobbit, Numenorean, elf, hobbit, other miscellaneous human, dwarf. Obviously not dwarf. The recurrence of the sun theme, I mean, from what we could see, it could be either elf or human. I was thinking the first person I thought of, Bjarnasonar, was Ar-Pharazôn as well. Yeah. I think that that's possible. In which case, wait. Well, we'll have to see if they would keep this. Fun fact: Ar-Pharazôn's the last king of Numenor, right? The one who does the bad things, well, the worst things. The Ar-Pharazôn the Golden. Yeah, that's exactly what I could see. But Ar-Pharazôn's sword is Aronruth, Thingol's sword from Doriath. Now, we'll see if they include that detail, which is only in the Silmarillion. No, it's in Unfinished Tales. It's mentioned in Unfinished Tales. So that does not look like Thingol's sword to me. So if they're exactly, Bjarnasonar, that's just what I was thinking, that if this is one of the great inherited heirlooms from the First Age, it matches shockingly well with his ensemble. Yes. I mean, of course, theoretically, he could have built his whole ensemble around the sword. No reason to say he didn't. But I'm not sure I believe it. Notice the division of three. Are those dragon wings?
Yeah, that's what I'm looking at. There's
swirls
definitely
on his chest?
dragon wing scales, and there's also like a scale motif on the leather gauntlets, and no chainmail, which makes me think possible horse rider or something like that.
Yeah. That's
Not
very
that horse
interesting.
riders can't have chainmail, just more mobility, but
That's very interesting. Who would have a dragon motif?
in the center, but it looks like a sun around it, right?
Yeah, definitely. Those are definitely rays of the sun on the edge.
They almost look leaf-like, though. They almost look leaf-like instead of rays of sun.
A little bit.
Ambiguous.
Yeah.
And again, I think there's runes on that ring.
Maybe. Ooh, well, it resolves pretty well.
It does.
Yeah, you're right. That does look like a diacritic mark. So yeah, I think you're right. Okay. Sorry, I'm still thinking about dragons.
All right.
The number of dragons that are mentioned in the context of the Second Age is 0. But then again, as I said, we know almost nothing about the Second Age. It could have been chock full of dragons for all we know. But that definitely looks like a dragon's wing to me. 3 dragon's wings with like the swirling, as if like the swirling of wind.
And the Celtic Trinity kind of reference there, which feels very Elvish-esque to me.
Or possibly blasphemous. Yes. Back to Ar-Pharazôn. I mean, of course, there is Smaug the Golden, father of dragons, so the gold dragon thing kind of, but of course Smaug the Golden, sorry, Glaurung who's also called the Golden, father of dragons, and then Smaug is called Smaug the Golden also later on. So golden dragons are a thing, is what I'm saying. But Glaurung the Gold does not have wings, so that would not be him. It's possible that it could be a Haradrim dude, Bjarnasonar, but I cannot imagine they're going to have Caucasian Haradrim. Like, that's seems to me almost impossible, right? So the skin tone seems completely wrong for the hands, for the Haradrim. So that's why I kind of rule that out. So could be late Numenorean warlord, possibly Ar-Pharazôn. I don't think elf. The dragon wings, I don't think elf. Probably Numenorean, I would think. I'm trying to make out the design more on the what do you call them? Those are, I'm losing the word.
Gauntlet? Arm plate?
Not exactly a gauntlet. Bracer. That's it. Bracer. That's the word I was looking for. Yes, on the bracers there. Because it looks representational. But I can't tell what it is. It doesn't look like a dragon. I could believe fish, but I don't
I was
really
going to
know.
say fish, yeah. And
could
that
be
would
a
tie in
fish.
with the scales. So maybe it's a sea monster as opposed to a dragon.
Yeah, yeah. Maybe. In which case, Numenorean, right? Like, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I think that's possible. But yeah, that does seem to be the direction of this.
Yeah.
There's also something in the posture with the two hands on the sword, which says either I'm standing here at guard, which is possible, or it's a sort of an arrogant stance. Like it said, it is as confrontational as the folded hands guy was, meek and I am standing at attendance kind of posture. The posture, the body language of these pictures is one of the other things that I find interesting.
Yeah, patient versus ready.
Yeah, exactly. Mm-hmm. Okay, let's do the next one.
Okay.
Okay. All right.
Oh, missed that.
Yeah, that was the thing I almost missed that. And then I noticed it because, of course, I was distracted by the parchment in the foreground. But yeah, we go back. Go up a little bit. That's just what I want. Is that the top? No, yeah, that's the top.
That's the top.
So I don't know what that middle ring is. I mean, it's not an actual finger ring around his neck. And yet, doesn't that evoke the ring around Frodo's neck, the ring on the chain around Frodo's neck? Okay, it's not a ring on a chain around his neck, but you can see there is a chain. It's literally a chain, right? And there's a ring.
And even the little shoulder cloak. I mean, if you told me this was Frodo on a dirty day, I'd believe you.
Right.
Although the chain looks almost like slave.
It does say that is a chain that says slavery, not a chain that says, I got this from an elf.
Leader of a household.
Yeah, exactly. But the ring on chain around neck motif makes me think Hobbit here. Mm-hmm. The map, I think map looks like a map. Those look like above the right index finger there looks like little like tree shapes or something. The line on the map in between the hands, right? The little bit down to the left of the left hand index finger down there, right? Looks like the end of a label on a map. This looks like a rolled up map. Definitely darker skin. I agree. I am almost sorry that I have heard, see, like most people just like can't wait to learn, like would love to know stuff in advance. I actually dislike knowing things in advance, right? Like the fact that I know that an African-American guy was cast as a Hobbit in this show, like it disappoints me because it's like skewing my analysis of this. Like, it's like, okay, like, yeah, I'm thinking Hobbit, but like, how much am I thinking Hobbit just because like this person has dark skinned hands and I know somebody with dark skinned hands is playing a Hobbit, like that's not good data.
My analysis, it's giving you too many options to consider.
Yeah, I'd rather take the thing for itself, not bring in outside information, but.
I mean, this is the crux of studying adaptation too, I think. Like, I prefer when it's something that I'm not studying or analyzing, I so much prefer to just go in and watch it and take what I want from it.
Right.
When you do all this lead up to it, you have so many preconceptions before you even sit down. You can't enjoy the thing. You're analyzing it too weirdly.
Right.
So here we go.
Right. Yeah. Oh, and sorry. Yeah, I didn't. I never even heard of the person. I don't know anything about actors. I didn't know that he's from Britain. Okay. Didn't know he's from Britain. Now I know.
This bit looks very Hobbit, waistband, linen shirt.
Yep.
Cloak.
Yeah, we do seem to have a cloak of some kind. There's something. Go back up to the top again. Top right, that kind of vertical line on the very top right. Further, that one. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Is that something on his shoulder, like a strap of some kind, or?
I don't know. Let me see if it's any clearer in the
This is the Twitter one. Yeah, let's look at the Instagram
Oh, there you
one.
go. It's almost like a back. Oh, that looks like iron, though, doesn't it? That's
Maybe.
a backpack strap.
Yeah, it's definitely something.
Oh.
Because I mean, I'm looking at this, and yeah. Ooh, Bjarna's Honor, I would love to hear you talk about the script. What do you think about the script or the runes that are on that map? Because that's very interesting. Bjarna's Honor is a linguist, so I'm interested to hear what he thinks about that. It's pictographic. Yeah, James Agua, good. James Tauber's here too. It does look like a pictographic precursor to runes.
Definitely.
Yeah. Bjarna's Honor said it looks logographic, like Egyptian hieroglyphics. Like by logographic, and Bjarna's Honor will correct me if I'm wrong, that means like symbols which indicate words rather than something alphabetical, right? Like an alphabetical set of runes. Yeah, it does look like hieroglyphics of some sort. The tie around it, is this person conveying a message? Is this being delivered to someone? Is this person receiving this? See, again, like the chain and ring around the neck thing, like I'm not only thinking Hobbit, I'm thinking quest. Like I can't get that idea. Like that this is a person involved in a quest is a thing that I just realized I had in the back of my head, and that it's suggested by the ring and chain thing. Again, the ring and chain thing is very different. Very different. And I agree, and especially the dirt on the skin suggests, and it looks like dirt. Doesn't that look like dirt? Or ash or something?
There's so little for us to work from with all of these, but the thing that's in the center of everybody's hand is so telling to their personality. So we've got, things of action, things of war, things of growth, but a map is quite different. That is purpose.
It is map, or if it's not a map, maybe it's not a map. Maybe it's just a message of some sort, perhaps. But
a librarian. I mean, maybe
the way he's holding it too, like this, it doesn't look like he's presenting it. Like his body language doesn't say messenger to me, right? He said he looks like he's receiving this instead of giving it. Yeah. Is it chest hair? That might be chest hair that I'm seeing. It's possible. Yeah. Again, and the reason I'm asking that is I'm trying to figure that chain. Like you said, that chain suggests slave rather than ornament. And I don't know what the metal ring that we see. Again, it's obviously not a finger ring. I don't know what that is, like what function that has other than just to keep the chain there. Yeah,
It's like the bit of a dog collar that you clip onto.
Right, potentially, or just like a symbol, right? It doesn't have to be an actual physical restraint to be like,
property.
Right. My slaves all wear this, collar thing, chain collar thing to, indicate to everybody else who and what they are. I mean, it's possible. It is possible it's just a brooch, though that chain is very visible and rather ominous looking. I mean, I think that, look, I can't imagine that's a good or happy chain. Like, it just doesn't look like it.
It's rusty and old and dirty. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's the we can't see. I mean, it's fuzzed out. It's not focused. It's out of focus, so we can't really see the skin there. Like staring at this person's clavicular notch really hard, but it's we can't tell. But it's just the juxtaposition with that and the chain is what's making me think like, dingy slave who doesn't get to bathe very often. But maybe that's wrong. Would they be so bold as to have hobbits in the series as an enslaved race?
Why not?
I don't know. They could, especially, I mean, what if hobbits had crossed, were in southern Eriador, down in like the Enedwaith region, and therefore under the Numenorean imperialist sway, right? I don't know. Yeah, I mean, Josh, I'm not commenting on how likely I think that is or how good of an idea I think it might be, but I'm just wondering. That idea never occurred to me until I saw this chain and ring there around this dude's neck. But
sorry, I got fully distracted.
That chain does not say badge of office to me. I mean, it's possible. Can't rule it out, but it does not say badge of office to me. It is too crude. It is too, I mean, it's, yeah. I mean, I couldn't absolutely rule it out, but I'd be surprised. Does not look decorative. Not to mention that, like, the dirty tunic this dude's wearing does not look like the clothing of somebody who's in office. So, yeah. And again, there's something going on there over the shoulder on, like, there's a burden on his back or something. There's something happening there. He's not just standing there. It's suggesting labor travel, maybe, could be wearing a pack. Yeah. It is. I'm not saying it like, are you looking at that? Yeah.
These spots. Yeah. I think that's just stitching though, because it's just further evidence that this is the only shirt he owns and it's threadbare.
Right. It got ripped and repaired or something like that's, yeah. A mended shirt rather than a decoration. Yep. Possibly. Okay. Next one. Am I sure it's male? No, not 100% sure. This one. So here I feel kind of like the Galadriel seems like the easy route. Galadriel is like the most recognizable female, most recognizable woman that we have in the series that we know of. And this looks like a book that she's holding.
It almost looks like a Greek goddess.
Yes.
This looks like a one who desires knowledge and studies many hours. So that would also fit a young Galadriel in my mind, but
I didn't kind of put my finger on the aesthetic, but you're right. Greek goddess is what was in my head when I was looking. I didn't put a name to it, but that is what I was thinking. I mean, if the robe were white, arms. If the dress were white instead of red, it would be even more Greek goddess to me. Not that Greek goddesses all have to wear white, but again, that's the kind of default one. Notice are those pearls on the shoulders or like under the, like on the upper arms? Pearls along the sleeves up by the shoulder. It is possible it could be Tarmiriel, Tony. We could be getting a Numenorean lady. It is possible.
The detail.
That's really gorgeous fabric, isn't it?
And I was just zooming in on the rope element. I mean, that's lovely. Oh, I didn't notice that. That's a sea creature of some kind.
It does look like a sea creature. Clearly waves, right?
Dumping fish in the sea.
And a fish or something emerging out of the sea. Don't think that helps me know what book it is. Yes, and you can see the cover bending over the spine on the edge, and there's the metal brace protecting the corner by her left thumb there. Yeah.
And an excellent manicure job.
Excellent manicure. Yeah. Which tells us something. You look at the top right-hand corner of the book. You can see the whole spine up there, right up by the top corner of top right-hand corner there. Yeah, of the book. Yeah. There you can see the whole spine. Yeah. So again, my default guess was Galadriel on account of femininity. Right. But that's not a whole lot to go on. Nothing else about this screams Galadriel to me. Looking at the book more carefully and noticing the whole fish/sea creature thing that seems to be happening there, I would guess Numenorean lady. The book, you'd think, would probably be important.
Or it could just be the act of it, learning.
Right, the act. I mean, it is possible just to represent sort of scholarship in general, and that there would be very learned women in Numenor, one would expect.
Because I think that about the big picture too, of like when you said merchant, some of these people could be merchants, some are warriors, some are farmers, some are these might not be specific characters. I like pretending they are and thinking that we could name who they are, but it could just be painting a picture of this Middle Earth too.
Right. Just to kind of convey sort of culture as much as individual people. Yeah. Senoitia, that's exactly it. Galadriel's not associated with the sea at all, nor frankly with books. Does Galadriel read? I don't know that Galadriel reads. Elves aren't big readers. I mean, the mere fact that it's a book suggests probably human. It's not that there are no elves that read. Pengalod was a great scholar and writer, of course, but it's not normal. It's not normal. Now, in the Second Age, it'll be more normal than it was in the First Age. But remember, Galadriel's a First Age kind of gal, So I don't really. Look at the posture. I'm trying to read her body language here, right? With the way that her hands are, I've got my Nature of Middle Earth here, and I'm trying to hold it the way that she's holding it.
Yeah, mine's on the floor.
So, okay, she's holding it like this. Okay, right. So she's like this. It's the positioning of her hands is odd, right? I mean, I assume in part it's to showcase the cover of the book, but
it feels a bit passive to me. It feels waiting in the hallways, waiting to go into your classroom.
Yes, which I would normally do like this if I were holding a book in front of me, right? That's why this seems so strange. This is how you would do if you were holding a book like this in front of you, and then you put it down, your hands would be like that, right? So is this the right book? Yeah, this is the right book. I'm just looking at the spine, and now I'm putting it down. Yeah, I don't know. It is bigger to her relative to me, and I think I might have bigger hands than she does too. So it's not a great comparison. And I'm just thinking, but I'm just looking at the posture of the hands. And again, I know it's a bigger book and she has to support it, but again, that's why I would do this if it were. If I'm holding a heavy book, that's how I'm holding it, not like this. But whatever. I'm just trying to again. Body language is one of the things we have to go on here. Right. So what I wanted to see, the reason I'm doing a reenactment of her hands is that I wanted to see what kind of postures are like. Is this I'm presenting a book kind of posture? Is this I've just received a book and I've taken it kind of posture? Is this this is my book that I'm casually carrying around kind of posture? I'm trying to read her language. I'm trying to understand her relationship to the book based on her body language is what I'm saying. Yeah. Electron John says it's like she's holding a rifle, but it's a book. Yes. Yes. It also does not look like reverent exactly.
No.
Not disrespectful, but it doesn't look like, behold the book. Yeah, right. Exactly, right. It's not, this does not look like it's necessarily the only book this person owns.
Right.
Okay, so Josh is proposing Erendis. But Josh, would Erendis be reading a book about the sea? If it's a book about the sea and it's Erendis, wouldn't it have more dents from having been thrown against the wall a bunch of times? Right? I mean, I don't know. Like, I don't know.
Maybe that's why it has the metal corner.
Maybe she wrote a book about how she hates the ocean. Yeah, maybe she's about to chuck it out the window. It's possible. In which case, I think I'd still hold it differently, right? Anyway, yeah. Numenorean lady.
And there's definitely something that smacks religious about this as well. You know, like the monk's orange, the carrying the book, the peaceful stance. It just feels very sacred.
Something like vaguely sort of monastic.
Like practice sacred, not like special sacred, you know?
Right.
It's just like, yep, I'm of the cloth.
Yes. Yeah. It's interesting. I do think probably Numenorean lady. Could it be an elf? Yes. It depends on how they do elf culture. I mean, again, elves not, as a rule, big into books, but, you know, they might not do elves that way.
It's the first time I've noticed how shiny and silver the title is.
Very metallic, yes.
Sorry, that's a lecture that I'm giving later.
But interesting because it was gold in the teaser, the title teaser, wasn't it? Mm-hmm. So we're getting gold and now silver, metallic Ring of Power words. Okay, all right, next one.
Moving on. Oh, this one.
Okay.
This is interesting.
The hands look feminine.
Feminine.
Hands look feminine to me.
Looks like a dress behind.
Looks like a dress behind. Though
like hips, you know, it looks like a come together at the waistline and
yes, the waistline looks feminine as well.
More.
The
oh yeah.
Yeah, that does. Haradrim, this I could see. Haradrim, or Numenorean again potentially. Notice the I know almost nothing about dress part vocabulary. The front part, the front torso part of the dress, which looks like scale mail. Is it the bodice? I thought the bodice was higher.
Bodice.
But anyway, whatever. The front bit of her dress looks like scale mail. Like it looks vaguely armor-esque. It's not armor, right? But it looks like armor. I'm not positive it's a dress, but I thinking the with the feminine hands and the waistline and the way that those the vertical belt sash things, whatever, hang down on the sides, makes it look a little bit more dressed like for me. I agree, Southern Ocean vibes. Yes, it does. Very. I could easily see, Kendall, the scales being made from shell, some kind of shell material. That very much, and rimmed in gold, right? I mean, that's gorgeous and very expensive. We've got the baubles. We've got a little ring there. The cupping and presentation of the flower, right? Which, and notice also it's held up against her torso, right? She's not holding it out. This is not a I give you this flower gesture, right? This is I am cradling a flower in front of me and looking down on it kind of gesture, right? That's what the body language suggests to me. The white flower, is yeah, that's interesting. Who is it? Plausible Denial says there have been scales on like 50% of the cloth in all of the costumes. Yes, there has. Major scale motif.
And fish and things that look like tridents. There's a lot of sea motif happening.
Yep. That's a really interesting speculation. Bookworm says somebody on Twitter was speculating Muriel with a flower from the tree, a flower from Nimloth, the white tree. It's interesting. I like that. I like that. It could be. Especially since these don't look like young hands. These look like the hands of a significantly older woman than the last one we were looking at. I don't know, significantly older, but I don't know. Maybe not significantly, but it does look older. The other woman's hands looked actively young. These hands don't look actively young.
Yeah.
So could it be? Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of getting into the picture. Like, do I think that this could fit with a like middle-aged Muriel looking at a plucked flower from the white tree, which has been destroyed or is about to be destroyed, and in like regret for the passing of the Numenor that she has known or whatever. Yeah, I could get into that. Yeah. Oh man. Solkatu, could it be Tar Telperian, one of the other ruling queens? How many characters do we expect them to introduce? I mean, like, this is a legitimate question that I have. How much Numenor are we? Not how much. What space of? How are they going to do the passage of time? How are they going to do How are they going to plot the events of the fall of Numenor over the course of the seasons? Like, that's one of the things that I wish I understood better, because I just don't know. But my gut tells me it's going to be hard for them. This I can tell you from my experience doing the SilmFilm project. One of the real challenges when you're planning a TV series where you have elf characters and human characters is that if you want your viewers to connect with the human characters at all, if you don't want them to appear and disappear like mayflies on screen, you have to kind of make some changes. And yeah, so I don't know. I don't know what so I would assume we're not going to get 15 generations of Numenorean royalty. I could see us getting a few. I could see us getting 3 or 4 generations, but I think they're going to have to telescope the decline of Numenor into at most a couple generations in order to make it go on screen. It's awfully hard to. Tolkien loved the epitomizing style, to use Christopher Tolkien's word, or the plot summary genre, as I've called it elsewhere. But that doesn't fly in a TV show. You can't do plot summary genre in a TV show. So, yeah. Better to show the first and last generation, Ederson. Yeah, I agree. That would be another way to do it, right? But the problem, Ederson, what do you do with the elves in the meantime, right? Like, you're going to skip just because you're going to skip 1,500 years of meanwhile what's happening with our characters who are still staying and having stories that whole time, right? What excuse do we have to be like, when last we checked in on Gilgalad, it was 1,000 years ago, and in the meantime, here's what he's been doing. Like, it's hard. I'm just saying, it's really hard to do both. You can do one or the other, right? You can certainly do a fall of, if it was just the fall of Numenor, you can totally do that in a couple different ways. But to do both, to tell stories that are operating on both time frames, the mortal time frame and the human time frame, and get the readers engaged with characters who are moving at those two different levels. It's not impossible, but it's challenging. It's challenging. There's some tricky things that you get to do. But
and more than likely, I would imagine they're going to combine as much as they possibly can. So we'll probably lose 15 different of the smaller characters to get one larger character that people will remember and carry through.
Exactly. I mean, you've got to, as much as Tolkien fans would love to see like every minor character ever mentioned in Tolkien appear in the like, you can't, for people who don't know the story, they're going to have a hard enough I mean, remember how hard it is to read the Silmarillion, people. Like, remember, like, don't forget the generations of people who have tried and failed to read the Silmarillion, in large part because there's so many characters to keep track of and they can't do it, right? Yeah. I agree, Ederson, I don't think they can show only the fall. I expect them to start round about the time of Aldarion, King Aldarion. But that's why my expectation is that they're going to collapse the time frame, that they're going to have Aldarion to Ar-Pharazôn, but it's only going to be a couple generations in between Aldarion and Ar-Pharazôn. Would be my guess. That would be my guess.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. But also,
look at this one.
If they spread it out over 7 seasons, maybe they can do more than I'm giving them credit for.
And I also look at this one, again, without the eyes of knowing all of the lore of the Lord of the Rings. If somebody was just happening upon this would be very recognizable. You know, this is on so many posters of Buddhism and the lotus flower and this idea of peace that, again, I think, you know, religious icon, something like that. So I feel like they're still trying to impart some sort of an idea of this culture to people who have no touchstone with Lord of the Rings. Right.
Yeah. That's a really good point. That's a really good point. Senalicia asks, will they also collapse the ridiculously long Numenorean lifetimes? I can't imagine. Oh, goodness, if they do that, they may make their job even harder for themselves. Right? You want the humans to live as long as possible, so that the differential between the elves and the humans is as little as. You don't want to increase the differential between elves and humans. The question is whether or not you want to show a differential between the Numenoreans and like the hobbits and non-Numenorean folks. So yeah, but I think probable Numenorean in the royal, Numenorean woman in the royal house, probably. The Muriel theory, I think, is a fun theory. I like that idea. I don't know that it is, but I like that. The connection with the white flower does seem important. Connecting to the white tree, and there is a reverence, and as you say, there's this sort of symbol of peace, right, of holding the flower in the hands like that. I think that we can do that, and yet I agree, Mr. Knight, that they're likely to shift the Forging of the Rings to later in the Second Age. I don't think they're going to want to cover multiple millennia if they don't absolutely have to. It's tough to make time pass like that.
I think they're going to ignore the timeline completely and just make up what works for them.
I think it's very likely.
Hope to not piss off as many people as possible.
Yeah. And I find that a totally defensible thing. The most important thing to do, it's always been not always been, it's been my rule for many years, right? Your most important job when you're making an adaptation is to tell a good and compelling story, right? If you're not telling a good story, if the story that you tell is a bad story, it doesn't matter how faithful it is to the text. Nope. So yes, that is their first duty. Okay.
Right.
Yeah, let's do the next one.
Cool.
What percentage of them have we done?
I know. Like, let's check.
Are we halfway done yet? I doubt it.
We're doing this in 2 parts if we're only halfway, or at least
I think that's what I'm thinking. Okay, we've done
we've
done 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
We're on the 8th.
We've done 8.
We're not even a third of the way
8.
through.
Hang on, 8. Wait, keep going.
Oh no, 9. 10.
We kind of looked at the horse head dude. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, so we're on our 10th.
Yeah.
Halfway.
We should do another one.
We should do another one.
Split it. Yeah. This is too much. Let's do at least one more, though.
Okay. Oh, totally. We're not done yet. Let's finish this row. How about we do the rope one and this one?
We'll finish the row and then we'll come back. Okay. All right.
So we'll do the rope one.
So let's do the rope dude.
Cool.
Okay. Rope dude.
Another fisherman motif to me. Like, isn't this fishing line or something from a boat?
Boat line, I could definitely see.
Green linen.
Yes, the ring. Very rough. Look how beat up that ring is, right? This is a ring that somebody who does manual labor has worn while doing the manual labor, clearly. In fact, with that like rough edge on the bottom part of the that looks almost like it could be functional. Like this is not a decorative ring. Like this is like he's got that so that he can use that to like score something or do. I mean that does look like a working ring. Look at the scar on the back of the hand there too. But clean. The hand is clean.
Very clean outfit.
Clean outfit. Clean hand. The sash or strap across the chest is fancy.
Tooled leather. Yeah, that's not trivial. Looks masculine. Both the hand looks masculine. It looks like an Adam's apple there, maybe. Broad shoulder.
Maybe not, but
let's see if we get anything more in this one.
Voice of Geekdom, I love that. Dan, I think it's a great theory. A Guild of Venturers person from Numenor. One of the, like a Numenorean sailor, basically. One of the Guild of Venturers, of course, was the sort of posse of sailing, intrepid sailor dudes that Aldarion was the leader of. The first ones to venture out. Yeah, I like that. I like that idea. It would explain why we have quality outfit. We know that there were multiple classes, and like the Guild of Venturers wasn't just made up of rich boys. You know, like it wasn't just. 'Cause we know this because we see Aldarion late in the story interacting with a local, not peasant, but servant, servant family who was, one of the sailors as well. So we know that there's a variety of classes within the Guild of Venturers, but they would be outfitted well. The fact that the strap is the only thing that's decoratively tooled like that could suggest like maybe that's like the rest of like the tunic's his own, but that's a gift or something. I mean, who knows? But yeah, sailor, Numenorean sailor, probably Guild of Venturers. I really do like that idea. And the other thing that says, Dan, the other reason I'd agree with you there is that there's no hint of military here, right? This is not a conqueror. This is not a war. This is an explorer, right? This is somebody, and the body language of holding the rope over the shoulder is a very I'm setting out on a journey kind of posture, right? He looks like he's even turned sideways and halfway off the screen. He's headed away. He's headed off, right? This guy. I don't know the function of those leather straps that are tied to his left wrist, but it looks like there is some function of them, which I can easily believe. Maybe it's simply to
caught in line or something.
Yeah, to bind up his sleeves so they don't get caught. It could be for warmth fill. That's possible. Yeah, could you zoom in on the only other decoration that I see? The band on the silver or white.
Which bit?
Arcs. That band there.
You can see it better in this one.
Oh wow, yeah. Oh look, it's got the sun thing.
And look, that looks like a little boat with people in it.
Kind of does. A little harder to tell.
Dots.
But it does.
It could just be dots.
Go back a little bit. Sometimes with the unfocused stuff, it's a little easier to see from further away.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's not. Okay. That looks like a sunburst on his shoulder.
Yeah, we can't see it on that one.
Do you think it's a rising sun or a setting sun? I want to say rising sun.
I feel like most of these it's rising because it's so golden. It just feels that way.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. The reason I ask is that if you associate Numenor with the rising sun, you're oriented towards Valinor. If you orient it with the setting sun, you're oriented towards Middle-earth.
Ooh.
Right? I mean, logically, like geographically, you'd think. Or maybe you could say the other way around. If you're standing on Numenor and thinking about the setting sun, you're looking to the west. If you're looking at the rising sun. But if you're wanting to associate Numenor with the setting sun in the minds of others, then those others in question would be people of Middle-earth. I'd be surprised if this is Eldarion himself, though it's possible. I could see Eldarion dressing like this. I wouldn't imagine he'd be going with bling on his sailing expeditions. It could be Eldarion himself, if not him, one of the Guild adventurers. That ring, I think, is clearly not a ring of power of any kind. It not only has no gem, but again, that's a functional ring. It's, I don't know, I'm not a sailor. I don't know what one would need a rough ring like that to grip or score or whatever one would use such a ring for, but it looks like something like that.
But it's very purposeful to put all of these rings on these posters, you know. Each one is getting us talking about something. So to announce the name so recently as the Rings of Power and then drop all these images, have loads of rings
of hands.
In them, they're trying to tease us. Like I'm starting to get a little pissed that there aren't more identifiable elements in these posters, because all of this is ambiguous. Like this could be my 8th grade history teacher who was a bit of a hippie, you know, like there's not anything specific enough for me to latch on to.
Exactly. No, I agree with that. And
it's the purpose to drum up us chatting.
Yeah, that's it, which is cool, which that's fine. That's fine. But here's what I would say then about the kind of overall ring picture then, right? Especially since we're almost done with our first installment of what is going to... I was almost positive there was no way we could get through all 24 images or whatever.
Have you met yourself, Corey?
I know, right? Yeah. But anyway, so here's the ring thing, right? Like, obviously, as you say, they just dropped the title, Rings of Power. The Rings of Power are very prominent at the bottom of every single image. And we've got nothing but hands, most of which have rings on them, right? So... obviously, we're supposed to think that. But the question, hey, is that a ring of power? Does not actually feel to me like the most relevant question. If you see what I mean. Like in this, in these images as a whole, right? I don't see that as necessarily one of, I mean, it's possible. But I don't see that as the really important question. This strikes me as a really interesting example. That ring, if there is a ring that we've seen which might be called the opposite of a ring of power, I would say it's this one. Mm-hmm. Right? This plain, non-fancy, beat up working ring, right? On a working hand. That's like, this is like a humble ring. This is not a ring of pride and power and the desire for dominion, you know? Again, it's something almost like the opposite of that. So I'm kind of tempted to like look at the rings again, not as trying to identify the rings in particular, but to see what the rings tell us about those people. Like, remember merchant dude, like merchant magnate dude or courtier dude, right? With his 2 rings with the big old flash gems on them, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, like that dude in the middle with the purple there, right? We've got the ring on the right index finger of the lotus flower lady, right? We've got the one ring with something runic, or some inscription, right, on the sword dude, right? We don't see any rings on Book Lady. We see one ring on the Lotus Lady. We see, we didn't get any rings on Hobbit dude. In fact, there seems to be here. Hang on. Rings. Yeah. Keep going down a second. I want to do a ring overview.
Yeah.
Okay. We got rings on the probable dwarf dude there. No rings but gold dust on the other one. Rings enough to make up for everybody else on that dude. Looking for correlations. No ring on dagger dude's hands. The woman, probably, who seems to be holding a sickle for some reason, doesn't have a ring. I don't see a ring on retractable scroll dude's hand. Yeah, so we got a lot of non-rings.
Yeah, and like all of these are showing us jobs and purposes as well as potential characters. Like, this is very much painting a picture of a society and a community as much as it's painting a picture of the story that we know.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Want to do the one more?
Yeah, I got it.
Okay.
I got it in me. I think you do.
All right. Yeah, I will do one more, and then we'll call it and come back. Okay. Here's our. There we go. All right.
Like this.
Very dirty hands. Hang on a second. I want to see what's the published description. With this
what's the description?
The published description with this one says. Let me guess. Hands, can't see, face. Okay. Close up of someone's hands. Look, I was right. Okay. Their hands are slightly dirty. I'd go beyond slightly myself, but okay. And are clasped together over the stomach. They are wearing simple clothes of dark green. Really? Okay, I see the green now. And a shirt of faded red. They are wearing a simple beaded bracelet on their left hand. Okay.
Okay. Very coarse fabric.
Very coarse fabric.
Homespun.
Yep. Almost like burlap. Like sort of that kind of weave.
Like a raw linen.
Yeah. Druid's Fire said that I think Druid's Fire is that the way the hands are folded across the stomach that makes you think pregnancy. Yes, I hear that. It's possible. It
does feel maternal.
Right.
But I felt a bit skewed a bit older than that.
Yeah. I that was my impulse too.
But who knows? Could be.
Yeah. Could be
Lots of
grand
layers.
maternal. Yeah. Could there be a baby in that? Could that be a sling with baby in?
I don't see any kind of bulge of baby, but maybe that's what it could be used for. So maybe
skinny
it's multi-purpose wrap, like baby wearing.
Right.
Let's check her in the other one.
It could just be a sash. Yeah. Right. Phil says it's not tied up enough. The baby would fall out the bottom. Well, that's why her hands are there, you see. Yeah.
I don't think it's currently holding a baby.
I don't think there's a baby. It would have to be a pretty skinny baby.
But this does look like a kind of people that have multi-purpose, wearable, useful clothing. So, she probably wears this all the time, and you can stick things down in it like a baby or a turkey.
right. Or yeah, I mean, yeah, you could carry something in it. You could. It's yeah. It looks like that's what did they say was green in their clothes? Okay, thank you. Green skirt then with red top and the bluish gray burlappy sash thing. What do we think of the beads? Notice the beads are worked. Those are wooden beads that are carved.
The coral?
Maybe. I don't think they're...
I mean, that one, these definitely have patterns on them.
They have patterns.
Whereas some of these look kind of natural stone.
Right. Or just, you know, like pointillism beads.
Beads for trade, perhaps? I mean, this gives off kind of like a traveler vibe.
Yeah, or even like nomad vibe.
Mm-hmm. That's what I mean.
Yeah. One of the most... I mean, I was saying that there was a surprising number of peasant pictures. This is strongly one of them. What's that rope? That string?
Very tightly wound.
It is.
Can we tell if it's holding something? Yeah, look, it comes down here too, doesn't it?
I
wonder if it's holding something. Oh no, that's something.
It's hanging off her sleeve, maybe.
But doesn't this look like it has a purpose?
It does. Is it the pull string to her hoodie, or I don't even know.
A dagger at the end of it, and a little satchel. I don't know.
little baggie, little purse or pouch.
Rich colors. They're all very earthy.
Mm-hmm. But dyed. I mean, that red is not natural. I mean, it's not undyed wool or something. I mean, and the green, like, also when you were zooming in to look at that string, the fabric looks nice. I mean, it looks
rich. It looks heavy.
that red fabric especially. Yeah, look at that. Look at the density of that weave there.
Mm-hmm. Heavy.
Yeah, that's a heavy top. Phil thinks that shawl looks extremely soft and cozy, and I bet it is.
I don't think it looks like it stinks a little bit, though. So I think she wears this outfit every day.
I suspect so. Certainly the sash, which is outerwear, certainly could be untied and wrapped around both shoulders as a shawl, right? Still probably could be used to carry babies if you needed to carry a baby or turkey or whatever. It's certainly the most kind of raggedy part. But yeah, this looks like older woman, like nomadic wise woman kind of feel to it.
Like she just wants to give you a hug and cook you some food and pat you on the head.
I could imagine the face up above this torso being kind of intimidating, right? Authoritative, intimidating. People are asking, is it possible it's a hobbit? Yes, it could be. I mean, there's nothing to indicate scale. Those beads could be any size, as could the clothes. So that we have no way to guess at scale here. So it's certainly possible that this is a hobbit. The dirty hands fit with remember the dirty and possibly mended shirt. Yeah. Gollum's grandma. Gollum's distant grandma. Right, but you're thinking of wise woman, authoritative matriarch kind of figure. Yeah, someone like that I could see. You could see a woman like this sort of standing, like other people bringing questions or, wrongdoers to her to be judged or something like Gollum's grandma. It's possible. It's possible.
Or a bit of a matchmaker vibe,
Right. Yeah. Like the kind of wise woman thing. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I could see that. It would not surprise me at all if they depicted, on the strength of the references to Hobbit, to Gollum's grandma, and even Gandalf's actual use of the word matriarch to describe her. It's very possible. I would not be surprised in the least bit for them to depict Hobbit society as fundamentally, even radically matriarchal. I could easily imagine that. Indeed, there would be textual support for that idea. Yeah. My biggest question, one of the biggest holes for me in my categories. Remember, when I'm thinking of categories, I'm thinking Numenorean, elf, hobbit, dwarf. And then I run into trouble with my fifth category, which is non-Numenorean human. Because we're clearly going to get some non-Numenorean humans, right? Surely we will get the imperialist period of Numenor, right? We will see the Numenoreans conquering and oppressing and even enslaving and then sacrificing certain people groups from Middle-earth. I feel like that's almost certain to happen somewhere or other. Who will it be? Are hobbits going to be a part of that world? My guess is yes, that hobbits are going to be that. That's going to be one of the role, like the role that hobbits are going to have is minding their own business, living in their own quiet little culture, only to have the Numenorean imperialists come in. That's my guess as to kind of the frame of the beginning of the story about hobbits. Are we going to also get other peoples, Tony? Yeah, exactly. I was thinking about that. The people who will later become the Dunlendings or the Bree folk. Yes, we could. We know the Bree folk are there in Bree, right? So, yeah, we could get something like that. But again, there's the question of like, how many characters can they introduce? Like, even how many cultures can they introduce? Like, it's, I don't know. So I'm wondering if, can you go back to the panels again? Okay, so I want to, let's see, go to the top. I want to do a dirty hands survey. So Apple Dude, gray bearded Apple Dude has dirty hands. Shoal Lady has dirty hands. Map carrying dude the nails looked dirty.
These look dirty.
Yeah. Staff wielding, is that a staff? Anyway, that guy is dirty. Acorns is dirty. Horsehead pommel looks warrior dirty. Different class. Arrow guy also warrior dirty. Sickle lady dirty. I'm trying to see if I'm trying to get a cultural picture. Are the people with dirty hands, can we get a picture of like the agrarian peasant culture? Can we put that together among all the one at the bottom center there with the mattock or hammer or whatever that is looks like a dwarf. So I'm not counting this one.
Well, dirty but gold.
Yeah, dirty with gold, so that's different. So I'm discounting both of the gold dust finger ones. They don't count as dirty. It's a special kind of dirt. So I think we are led here to believe that probably the lady with the sickle, the dude with the dude with acorns, scroll up more, dude with berries, dude with staff probably, or tool, shawl lady, and then maybe gray bearded apple dude, are from a similar kind of agrarian culture. You could see them all being from the same village or the same area, perhaps. Arrow is dirty, I know, but I don't count him. He's warrior dirty. I think. Probably. Warrior. He could be hunter dirty, I know. But he doesn't look like field hand dirty, which is what the rest of them kind of look like. Even Apple Dude looks field hand dirty rather than, been out in battle dirty. I agree that Appleman looks like a beggar or a vagabond. It would fit with a beggar or vagabond. A little bit odd to show a beggar with an apple in his hand. Like associating a beggar with food would be counterintuitive. But I agree. I mean, the hands would fit a beggar. I agree.
There's also just the whole idea of like the apple and temptation that image draws up, that like
the very bright red apple in the hand. Yeah.
Something a little bit more malicious behind that potentially. And the kind of like the hiding behind the woven fabric. There's something a little secretive there.
Yes. Yeah. The body language there too of the, there's something
precious.
Hoarding and yes. Yeah, I don't have a great feeling about Apple Dude. Okay. All right. Well, we will come back. I'm not quite sure when, but we will come back and do a second installment. I know, Maggie, I know it's getting late for you over there. Maggie's in the UK, so.
I know, I'm like, hence my eyes like getting smaller and smaller.
Yeah, exactly. So I don't want to keep you up too late.
And I feel like I haven't really dug into these images yet. I just got them a couple hours ago. So, I mean, we all did. So,
right.
Yeah, I want to dig in a bit farther. And we should start off the next time too of just talking about like, what does this mean, dropping 24 images at once? Like, there's some stuff to unpack here about like drip feeding us info. But anyway, yeah, you and I will come up with another date and do round 2.
Yeah. Oh, Matthew's asking which one was my image, which one was the one they sent me. We didn't get to it. Actually, mine was the guy with all the rings, the guy with the like 50 rings and all the gold down at the bottom. That one, that was mine. Yeah, this is the one they sent me. Yeah.
A lot.
The real action is up north of there, I think, if you scroll up. But we're not doing this. We'll do this later. We'll do this later.
Yeah, but no, you've got me intrigued. I at least have to like tap into it. Maybe we start off with that one next time.
Yeah, maybe we'll start off with that next time. Yeah.
I mean, the anticipation.
So much good stuff. That one I'm excited about.
I know, and the one with the 2 trees. Oh, now we're not loading, so I guess that's a sign that we should stop.
That's it. Yeah. Just like I always take it as a sign when, like, I'm 5 minutes after I'm supposed to stop class and my internet goes out or blips.
Yep.
And I'm like, well, okay,
there
we are. Yep. Yeah, look at that fade
star.
Yeah.
2 of them.
Yeah. Okay. Maybe we'll start with this one next time. Okay.
Do you want to try to figure out a date awkwardly right now and announce it, or should we just say check Twitter?
Well, we could maybe go tomorrow afternoon, like same-ish time tomorrow.
I could even do like an hour earlier. That helps this function.
I don't
you
think
can
I
say
can.
no.
I don't think I can. I think 4 p.m. Eastern is the earliest I could do tomorrow. I got my stream, and then I got to pick up my kid. So,
at least that one might. All right, 9 o'clock tomorrow. I can do that.
9 o'clock your time. All right. So same time tomorrow, we'll come back for episode 2 and look at the rest of them. There's a lot of images. I mean, we didn't get faces, but seriously, like there's so much that is happening in a lot of these. So anyway,
it's just fun to look at them together. Like there's no conclusions will be drawn. That's not the point of this. It's just fun to
no. And if I saw somebody was talking about how on like, one of the Reddit's people are looking at like close-ups of the back of hands of the known actors to compare like the veining on the back of the hands with us. And like, in my opinion, like you can do that, but that's like cheating. Like, it's like looking up the answer in the back of the book. Like, I'm not even interested in that. Like, if somebody figured it out for that reason, I would actively not want to know. It's not fun. Like, what is fun is looking at the picture as it's presented, right? And reading the story that we're getting there. And from the stories that we're getting from these images and trailers and things that we get to begin to put together the whole big picture. Like that's some people have this like burning desire to know everything. And like I said, if I would not want, yes, I have, I am like, I have agreed to work with Amazon on this. I am under NDA, but I've not been told anything that I don't have to, I think as of now, I know exactly nothing that I'm not supposed to reveal. I've been told no secrets, and I don't want to know secrets. I don't want to know, I wouldn't want them to tell me in advance everything before they release stuff. This is the fun thing.
Some people just live off of this though, and I think in some of the fan circles, especially with something that has so much detail like Lord of the Rings, that it's currency. If I figured this thing out and you haven't, I have that,
Right.
So I get that drive, but I don't have that drive.
Right.
I have no interest in that drive.
No, talking about like in-depth discussion, man, like what can I say? That's where I live. But anyway, okay. Thanks everybody for joining us. We'll see you guys tomorrow. We'll come back again tomorrow to finish up and complete this discussion. And I will thanks everybody for joining us. Thanks Maggie for jumping on relatively short notice here, and we'll continue it tomorrow.
Thanks for having me. See you tomorrow.
Thanks everybody. Bye now.
Bye.